Hi everybody, it's Mr. Boll here, and this is the final part of our unit on volcanoes and earthquakes. So this bit, it's the last part, but it's going to take us more than one lesson. It's a special project I want you to do, and it's called the disaster report. I'm going to allocate you to a particular famous event in history. Could be a tsunami, could be an earthquake, it could be a volcano, and you're going to find out all about it and deliver a presentation to the rest of the class, which is going to be like this one. This is the waggle. So I've got 6 slides in mind. That's all you need. You don't need millions of slides. And then I'm going to finish up with a quiz because I want to make sure that my audience is paying attention. So you're going to do the same. And you're going to have the same as me, have a title page. Then you're going to have 2 slides based on images from Google Earth of your event and where it is in the world. And I'll show you how to do that next time. Then you're going to have all the key facts that you found out. You don't need millions, and we don't need it all copy and pasted off Wikipedia. We just need you to find out 5 or 6 important bits of information. Okay, you'll see mine, and I want you to do roughly the same. Then you'll find some photos or diagrams to help you with your presentation, and that will be it. Okay, so let's go through mine, and you're going to use this as an example. So here's mine. Mine's all about the famous eruption of a massive volcano in America called Mount St. Helens, which some of your parents may remember, maybe, or your grandparents, and it was in 1980. Okay, so Mount St. Helens on May the 18th, 1980, a massive, very, very surprising. People had been hearing tremors in the area and feeling them. And sometimes there's some earthquake activity that is associated with eruptions of volcanoes because they're so closely linked together, as you know. But people didn't realize the eruption was going to take place and be so disastrous. Now, here's my second slide, and I'm calling this slide the Google Earth zoom in slide. Okay. When you go on Google Earth, you can find a photograph of your wherever your area is, your particular disaster, and you're going to have a close up here. Now, this one, my one, Mount St. Helens, is here is the crater that was left behind after the volcano erupted. And this part, all this area, that used to be part of the mountain as well. But during the eruption, this bit all blew up and went off down the side of the mountain, thousands and thousands of tons of rock, all the trees, all the grass, all the rubble, and all the snow that was on the top at the time, which melted and made this massive landslide, okay, which we can talk about in a minute. So that's a close-up that you can get on Google Earth. Here on Google Earth, this is my Google Earth zoom out slide because I want us to be able to see where our particular event is in relation to boredom. So here I've got on my photograph here from Google Earth, which is fantastic, and I'll show you how to use it. I've got Mount St. Helens here, okay, and then I've got found Borden right there in the south of the UK. And you can see that to get to Mount St. Helens, you'd have to cross the Atlantic. This area is Canada, but Mount St. Helens is just below the Canadian border in the northwestern part of the United States on the Pacific coast. Now, you'll remember that that's very important because it's part of the Ring of Fire, and we know that that's the most active area in the world for earthquakes and volcanoes. So that is my third slide, which shows me where my event is in relation to boredom. Now, my next slide is my first key facts slide, okay, and I'm going to have 3 of these, and each of them is going to have 1 or 2 pictures to help me, and then I'm going to get, if I need it, a little arrow to help me show the point that I'm trying to make. So my key facts 1, Mount St. Helens, I'm using the keywords here, is an active stratovolcano in Washington State in the northwest of the United States. It's in the continent of North America, and I want you to give me the exact same information about your event, okay? Use the keywords, okay, and say if it's a stratovolcano, for example, what type of earthquake, etc. The 1980 disruption was the most disastrous volcanic eruption in the history of the United States. It was level 5 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. The entire north side of the mountain slid off during the eruption. Here's a diagram to show you that. Here's the eruption starting, and down here is the grass and the trees and all the earth and everything that would normally be there. But actually, the eruption made the whole north side of the mountain all slide away in a massive landslide, which caused a lot of damage. Right, key facts 2. Now, Here is my map. I've got a map showing where the ash went from the massive ash cloud that you saw in the first photograph, and it actually spread over this amazingly large area. As you know, the United States is a massive country. It's much bigger than Britain, and places as far away as here, okay, actually got some of the ash from this volcano. So that shows you how far it was. It's amazing. So this gives you an indication. Use the key. This was 2 inches of dust and up to 5 inches of dust and ash, and all the crops that were in that area would almost certainly have died. It would have affected all the animals and plants that live in that bit. 2 inches here, up to 2 inches, that's also pretty bad for any crops. It would get in the rivers, it would get into your house, you'd be breathing it in, it's pretty nasty. And even this, although it's not so bad, this is a trace of dust up to half an inch. That would still be bad, especially if people with lung conditions, etc., getting into machinery and stopping it working. So a really big effect. Now you may think, well, that's weird. Look, there's some ash got down here, but there's nothing in the middle. How did that happen? So it must be to do with the way that in that particular time in the period just after the 18th of May 1980 of how the winds and the weather were affecting the way the ash was distributed all across the United States. So that's my first key fact on this page. And a second one that we actually found out at school, one of the Mako sharks found this one out, and I didn't know it before, is that a very famous man, Harry Truman, who was president of the United States at the end of World War II, he lived in this area right near the mountain, and everyone said, well, maybe we should evacuate. And he said, no, I'm not going to evacuate. I want to stay in my house. And that was actually a bit foolish because he did die during the eruption. This is my last slide of key facts, okay? So I've got some important facts that I want you to get as well. I want you to find out any casualties that you can. In the one that I'm studying, 57 people died, thousands of animals were killed, okay? Obviously, that's really bad. And of course, the other thing to bear in mind is it could have been a lot worse. The amount of tons of landslide and rubble that were created, if it was near a city, it would have been a lot worse, okay? That's my, and then my last key fact, more than 200 homes were destroyed and 185 miles of roads and 15 miles of railways were damaged. Okay, now, here is a very unusual picture. Now, this is taken quite a long time, years after the volcano erupted in 1980. But this is a lake really near to the mountain. There's the mountain in the background. And it's still chock-a-block full, as you can see, with dead trees. So years later, you've still got all these trees that were rushed off down the mountain during that landslide, and they're still there. And they've just gone all this white bleached color because they've been sitting on that lake in the sun for years and years. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? And this is an example just after the eruption of the sort of mudslide that then got down into the local villages and towns. Luckily, most people had evacuated because they felt the tremors, and the government said, I think you should evacuate. Some people, like Harry Truman, were a bit silly and refused to leave, but most people did. And of course, you've lost your car, you might have lost your house, but you're still alive. Okay, so that is my presentation and my last slide. This is what I want you to do as well. So you're going to have a total of 7 slides, the same as me, and you're going to use the same headings for each slide. Okay, and then my last slide is a quiz to make sure my audience have been paying attention. I want you to do the same. Now, I'm going to go through these questions, and if you're at home doing this lesson, okay, because this is the first lesson, next week you'll be back, which will be fantastic, and we can do the rest of this project at school. You can be working with partners who have been here and have been able to do some of the background to this as well, maybe a bit more than you have. But this one is going to be these questions. Call them out if you're at home, or tell your mum or your dad, or tell your sister, or maybe the dog is the only, the communication, but tell whoever you like. Right. Where is Mount St. Helens? I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, well done. It's in the United States, and especially extra points if you said it was in the Northwest and that it was on the Pacific coast, all right, and next to the Pacific Rim. Well done. What type of volcano is it? Right, and I want 2 words here. Active stratovolcano, right? Well done. When was the major eruption of Mount St. Helens? Okay, and that was in 1980, and you can have an extra point if you remember it was on May the 18th. How many states in the US were affected? The answer is 11. How many people were killed? Call out what you remember, and the answer is 57. What unusual effects has the eruption had on lakes in the area? Okay, I expect you got that one. And that the lakes in the area are still, years later, full of dead trees. Okay, so that's my Waggle presentation, and you're going to have probably the first lesson at home. You'll do all the research and find out the facts. Then you'll have another 2 lessons when you'll be back at school, and you can put it all together in a presentation and work out exactly what you're going to say, and then you're going to present it to the class. All right, look forward to seeing you next week. All the best. Bye.